Hello and welcome once again to Red Gaming Tech. My name is Marta. Today is the 16th of July and once again I'm here with the latest gaming news. Today is more of a discussion than a news item, but Ubisoft's Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing, who goes by the name of Tony Key, has said that unless a game can be turned into a franchise, they will not make it. And this was during an interview with A-List Daily. And Tony basically said that it's too expensive to simply fire and forget. If a game does not have franchise potential, Ubisoft will not begin development. And he said that the plan is absolutely to have Watch Dogs be the foundation for a larger franchise, explaining that, quote, "That's what all our games are about. We won't even start if we don't think we could build a franchise out of it." And Ubisoft is happy with the way that Watch Dogs is currently going, with all the hype and so forth, and they've said that until we're the biggest game of the year, we're not going to be satisfied. Now, before we all get out our pitchforks, let's just step back a minute. To be honest, while I hate the endless milking of popular franchises as much as the next person, I do understand it from a business perspective, from a developer's perspective, because when you're making a AAA game, full-blown $60 release, that costs millions of dollars, and that's not hyperbole. You can go and look it up. Millions of dollars. The amount per game varies depending on the game, of course. For example, MMORPGs are notoriously expensive to make, but let's take, for example, a big game such as, say, Battlefield 4, for example. That is probably going to cost into the hundreds of millions of dollars to make, simply because it's got to have the best graphics, it's got to have all this, it's a huge product that all these little costs, they add up to a huge expense. So it's not exactly bad for them to say, right, okay, we've just spent this amount of money making this game. They don't want to then just leave that up here. They're like, well, okay, on to the next one. No, they want to use that engine, that IP, those characters, that story, again, to make as much money as possible because, well, their games cost so much to make. Now, this isn't saying that I'm saying, oh, every franchise should have a yearly release. No, that's not necessarily the case. You can have a franchise of something and not have a yearly release. Not that I'm against that, but you do tend to get a bit sort of overkill of a series when they release a game every year. At least that's what I do, that's just me. When you've got one every year, it suddenly just becomes kind of like, oh, there's a new game coming out, cool. Whereas if a game comes out, every 3 to 4 years, well, then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I've been waiting for ages for this, come on, I want the next installment. I think you get what I'm trying to get at here. But I think there's other ways to do this as well as the whole franchise thing, and I think that what Ubisoft did with Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon is actually a really cool way to make use of all of that expenditure, because obviously with Blood Dragon it was Far Cry 3 stripped down to a slightly more limited open world game using the same engine, assets and so on. Obviously they changed the graphics around pretty significantly for Blood Dragon. I don't think anyone can argue that they didn't, and of course different sound and all that, but the engine was used, the same assets were used, like, the texture work, all of that. Basically the bare bones of Far Cry 3 was used to make Blood Dragon, which was a much cheaper release. Of course, Far Cry 3 was a full price $60 game, whereas Blood Dragon, I think, even at full price, was about 15 quid or something like that. Just picked up in the Steam sale actually, so happy face for me. So that's another way to get more out of all of that money that you just spent, to use that engine, the same assets and so on, to make a smaller in scope but still really fun, cheaper package. And I really hope that more people are going to follow suit with what Ubisoft did, because, well, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, despite being heavily pirated due to the fact that it was leaked early, it's actually done pretty damn well, and Ubisoft said that they're more than happy with how it sold and the money that it made. So I think we'll at least be seeing more of that kind of stuff from Ubisoft, but I hope that it's kind of going to be taken as a signal to other AAA developers that, hey, we don't just have to keep making a direct sequel. We can make like a spin-off, do something a bit silly, use the Assassin's Creed engine to make something a bit weird and out there like Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, or some other developer using their big engine, like for example, I don't know, the Frostbite 3 engine being used for something smaller in scope, cheaper, but something that's going to make money for that franchise and give them some of their money back, because as I said, making games, AAA games, is extremely expensive, and of course making any game, it costs money, but the bigger in scope you get, of course, the more money you're going to have to add up on the bill at the end of the day. It's a shame that that's how it is, but this is gaming as it is at the moment, and to be honest, this attitude is pretty indicative of the whole attitude of the industry, and to be honest, it's all down to cost, and they need to make as much money as possible from each title, even if it means franchising it, because, well, the new engines, the new everything cost millions of dollars to make. Now, I do think that franchising a series is a very slippery slope indeed, because, well, obviously, if your customers feel like they're being nickeled and dimed, then it's not going to go well for you. Of course, yearly releases are fairly common with the big titles, of course, Call of Duty, Battlefield 4, sorry, not Battlefield 4, just Battlefield generally. Assassin's Creed, of course, has now turned into a yearly series, so that's absolutely fine. However, it is a bit of a slippery slope, and it can lead, I think, to a little bit of stagnation, because, well, you just don't have as much time to add all these cool features and new things into the game. Assassin's Creed 3 had its share of problems, but it did bring finally a lot of new things to the table, which was a relief to see after 3 games with Ezio. As much as I love Ezio, his games were starting to feel a little bit tired by the end of Assassin's Creed Revelations, and while Assassin's Creed 3 had its share of problems, it did bring some new things to the table, and I think that's one of the issues, one of the downsides of doing yearly releases, is that, well, you just don't have as much time to innovate, because if you take 4 years to develop a new sequel, obviously you've got more time to experiment, more time to flesh out X, Y, and Z idea or what have you, than you do if you have a year to work on it. It's as simple as that. So I think this is going to be another video at some point. I don't want to go too off topic here. I've already discussed and speculated on this for a while. I wouldn't mind doing another video on this actually, so I think I'll do that at some point soon. Anyway, that is me done for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit me up with your thoughts and opinions down below. How do you feel about yearly franchises and the attitude in the gaming industry in general that, well, if a game series is not a franchise, then it's not going to be made. As I said, that's me done though. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you next time.